We have with us today Mr. Hans Sicat. He is the president of the Philippine Stock Exchange. Hi, Hans. Thank you for giving us the time.
Thank you for inviting me.
So how did you find the book?
Well, I liked it because it actually reminded me of something like the parable of the talents.
Yes.
Where there's a story behind it, and it obviously is set in biblical times, and yet there's a practical lesson that one brings out. In the parable of the talents, it was essentially to use your talents or God-given talents and to basically move yourself forward. In terms of your book, it talks about Arcad and essentially how he would translate his dream of being rich to actually how he would get rich. And I think a very simple set of rules which everybody could or can remember. So to me, that's it hits home because it's a very straightforward story, and obviously it's disguised in a almost like in a parable type manner.
That's true. And talking about teaching the loss of money to our children, maybe you'd like to share with us any of your childhood money memories?
Oh, it's quite interesting. Very similarly, when I was a young kid, my dad will always say, if I wanted extra money, first of all, I had to figure out how to budget what the small amount that I had.
And you had an allowance.
I had an allowance. It was given weekly.
Okay.
From my grade school days, and obviously I had to take everything out of there, including what I had to save.
That's true.
And interestingly enough, when I said that it wasn't enough, he said, "You better write me a memo with 3 good reasons why I should increase it." And that made me really think, how can I justify asking for a higher allowance when, in fact, I would have to take out a few things, obviously, for some snacks. And the rule that, what I remember very clearly, and I think very much in line with what you say as rule number 1, i.e. pay yourself, was that my dad always said, or my mom and my dad always said, save the first 10% of whatever you have. So in a way,
that's great. That's exactly the pay yourself first in the
pay yourself concept, right? So it's something that even today I try to tell my kids.
Yeah. So did your father really call it a memo?
Well, I guess he said, write me a note.
A note. Yeah. So now you have 3 kids, right? Who are not kids anymore.
They're not kids
How old
anymore.
are they now?
Well, the oldest one is now 21.
Okay.
And the youngest one is 17. So
are they all in school yet?
They're all in school. The first 2 are in university, and the last one is a senior at international school.
So she's the only one with you right now?
Just one, actually, it's my son. So he's the last one.
So the bunso is the son?
Yes, that's
2
right.
girls,
2
and,
girls
a
and a boy.
So how do you impart your money lessons to your children?
It's actually very much the same thing.
You ask them to write a memo as well?
Actually, I do. I've actually asked them since they were in grade school to say why I should give them X amount or Y amount and where they're going to spend it.
Okay.
The basic rule of saving, I always say 10%. They've always had a savings account at the very least since they were kids. So
that's good.
I hope that has started to impart that lesson. And I think for my 2 eldest kids who are now in university, they have now started to invest in mutual funds, actually.
Okay.
So as a basic diversification tool. So
are
I think
they invested here or abroad?
They're actually invested in the U.S.
In the U.S.
Right, where they study.
Okay.
So I think that I'm hoping they learned something a little bit. And I hope that they carry these basic traits of saving and investing forward in their own lives
and grow up to be the rich arcades in the future.
Yeah. We hope so. Since we can't supply them their allowance anymore. It's a finite amount.
Yeah. You're going back to let me discuss your career a little bit. It's heavy on investment banking. You have the 2 decades at least of investment banking with Citibank.
That's right.
And now that you're the president of the PSE, how do you find are you happy with where our financial markets is right now?
Well, clearly there's a lot of development that needs to be done, and our advocacy is on a wide range, deepening the markets, having more participation both in terms of investors and also of issuers. And when it comes to, let's call it the education aspect, We really are trying to help spread the word that you need to save and invest if you are an individual investor. And if you are an issuer, we obviously like you to participate in the markets by coming to issue more securities, so there's actually options for investors to buy. So within these two things, and I think maybe the third leg is really improve corporate governance so that everybody is at a level playing field with the highest level of transparency that is there. So I think these three things taken together, we hope will redound to a more robust market in the future.
In the last few years that you've been the head of this institution, and how many years is that?
It's about 3 years now.
And I heard you're already the longest running president. Is that right?
Or one of the longest.
The longest running. What are you most proud of in terms of accomplishments of the PSE under your leadership?
Well, I think that, first of all, the corporate governance levels have increased. I think we're proud of that, and a lot of companies are practicing a higher level of transparency and as well as due diligence. I think maybe the second level is that we've been able to introduce new products into the market, which has not happened in a while. And I think thirdly, we're quite proud of the fact that we have been able to increase the volumes, depth, and number of transactions in the marketplace. And even over the last 2 years, average market or daily market values are now about over 100% of what it was just 18 months ago, for example. So we're very happy this is the case, because I think that a deep capital markets will obviously motivate more investors and savers to come in. And
more issuers to join.
Of course, yeah, that's right. And more issuers will obviously also come in as the market deepens. And we're hoping that this continues in a positive virtuous circle. And with that, everybody wins.
But is it really just less than 1% up to now?
Yeah, in terms of the number of investors, it's about
direct. Is that it's just the direct, or does it include those who are invested in the equities market by virtue of funds?
No, I think that number is actually the number of unique accounts that we can count. So clearly, maybe an interesting statistic is that when you look at the market participation, in terms of the type of account, about 80% of participants are actually retail investors, and about 20% are what we might call institutional investors. But in terms of value, it's actually the opposite.
Yes.
That participation goes up to about 85% accounted for by institutions, and only 10%.
And it's highly possible that the institutional carries with it several retail.
Correct, that's right.
So the 1% could really be a little bit...
could be even smaller in terms of a count number.
I was going to say that I thought it would be a little bit understated, because if you add up the retail plus... if you come up with a breakdown of the retail in the institution, I'm just probably hoping it could be more than 1%.
I think the good news, however, is that as we have introduced even more avenues to have, let's call it online accounts right now, it's one of the additional services that PSE has been able to offer to broker-dealers. The growth in that particular market segment has been phenomenal. It's grown over the last 2.5 years. We're measuring growth rates of about 45% compound annual growth rate per annum. And of course, it's starting for a very small number. But this number, I think, will be the one responsible for actually growing the number of retail investors into the future. And we're happy about that. The trend will continue. There's no letting up. In fact, yesterday I just saw a few additional statistics, and it's interesting because if you correlate it with the number of trades done by, let's call it, online investors, that number went over, I guess, 8 times from the time we started measuring it last year to last month. So to me, of course, starting from a small base, but to me the trend line is very positive. It's all upwards.
Upwards. We're going up. Well, I'm going to challenge you, because you're so used to talking about investing in the stock market to the people who already understand So let me challenge you by asking you to invite the regular Juan to invest in the stock market. Then how would you convince somebody who is just the regular Pinoy?
Oh, I would say the first thing to do, of course, is to figure out and maybe ask for or find a broker dealer that you can open up your account. Usually, by the way, that's possible by simply asking your bank, because they usually have a broker themselves. And I think if you're going to put even a small amount, it's probably best to start out not necessarily by trying to figure out which stock to buy. It might be easiest to just invest in an ETF.
Yes.
And that will be your introduction to the market. It'll be easy. And as you gain experience and start understanding some of the terminology and also maybe some of the components of that ETF, only then, I guess similar to what you said, only then when you start understanding things a lot more, should you branch out to individual stocks.
That's right. So you rely on your fund managers first, those who already know it.
Correct.
And then
so
once you know...
Mutual funds are also a good way to get introduced to various investments, because again, you have a fund manager working for you, and it's less daunting, I think, in terms of trying to construct a portfolio.
Yeah, you're just worried of one price going up and down
That's right.
instead of several prices.
Correct.
So what are you most excited about in the stock market, the Philippine stock market?
Oh, I'm excited about the growth prospects of this market. I think, first of all, the economy is doing well, and that, I think, is a great driver for more products and services in the stock market, and clearly more issuance of different products, even with the same issuers. Of course, we're trying to attract more issuers to come into the market. We think that, in fact, not just this year, but let's say over the next 2 to 5 years, more issuers will actually start coming to the market as they understand that having an equity leg in terms of your own funding requirements, if you're the issuer, is an important part of growth.
Right. Yes.
So
estate planning as well.
Well, that's right. If you are an individual or say family who's held a company, and it'd be easier to transfer to your, let's call it your heirs, with maybe less of a tax bite.
Yeah, because it's actually unleashing the value of what you've grown. If you've grown your company from the very start, it's really unleashing the value when you issue it, when you offer it to the public.
That's right.
Okay, so let me go to an economic question. Your father, Gerardo Sicat, is one of the foremost economists in the country. I understand he's the first Director General of the NEDA,
That's
right?
That's correct.
National Economic Development Authority. Let me now ask the son a question. My beauty contest question. If you were asked to solve the poverty problem in the country, how would you solve it? What would be your top 3 priorities?
Wow, that's a tough ask. But I would say maybe the following things. One, that government should actually spend perhaps a hefty part of its budget in terms of infrastructure spending. I say that because infrastructure spending, I'm talking about roads, bridges, public transport systems, and the like. Airports, ports, actually have probably the highest multiplier effect in terms of not just investment but job generation. And I think that's very important in terms of trying to have an inclusive type of growth. Secondly, that I would say that I'm more of the free market type, so I would be more for deregulating a lot of the other industries in many senses. So a lot more of the competitive model as opposed to, let's call it the model wherein government tries to specify which industries get the best tax breaks or so on. And the reason I say that again is that in a free market, at least in my own thinking, is perhaps the most efficient way of transmitting resources to where it's needed, and therefore it will create jobs, hopefully. It'll create opportunities for the people. But thirdly, I would say that education.
Yeah.
Continuous education, especially it starts out from primary level, secondary, and of course tertiary levels, is going to be so important for the next generation or even the current generation of workers. And I think that an educated workforce means that they will also be able to contribute in their own way to what's happening in the country. So perhaps these are my top three.
Your top three.
How would I call it?
Priorities.
Yeah.
You've lived abroad for a good number of years. Is that right?
Yeah, for about maybe half my...
half of your adult life?
Yeah, or maybe about, yeah.
Is that why you have the twang?
I've
always been wanting to ask you that. Your mom.
My mom spoke very well, actually. So.
But your mom is Filipino.
Yes. But she...
Your second name is Brinker.
Yeah.
But that's a given name.
That's a given name.
But that's what you use as your initial, right?
Yes. My mother is Loretta Macasyar. So interestingly enough, one of her, how would I call it, interests when she was growing up was actually, she was like a DJ.
Oh, really?
And she was, I guess, some
99.5
sort of an actress. She was an actress, a stage actress.
Your mom?
That was her...
how groovy is that?
This is how... and she enunciated well, spoke extremely well.
Yes.
And although she's a political scientist by training. So,
does she still act up to now?
No, she's passed on, but this is up until, I think...
2010, right?
Yeah, that's right. But up until she was in her university days, she did like a couple of plays and that type of thing. So we have, some photos and some recordings of how she spoke. But yeah, that's actually my mom.
You didn't get her acting genes?
No. Fortunately.
Any of your kids? Any of your kids
No.
who got it?
No, but I actually talk exactly like my brother does. It's interesting. So people can't tell us apart if we answer the phone. With the same voice.
Really?
I said that, obviously my mom. That's
yeah. I got lost in my question, but the reason why I asked, why I mentioned that you lived in, was it just U.S. or even other parts of the world?
U.S. and Hong Kong.
U.S. and Hong Kong. I would like to ask you, why did you come back to the Philippines?
Oh.
What made you come back?
Okay. Well, I was working for Salomon Brothers. I guess this is the predecessor firm of Citigroup. Mm-hmm. This was in the, I guess, mid to late 90s. And as we were doing more deals for the sovereign, including the Philippines government and the central bank here, they said, you should now start having bricks and mortar here in the Philippines. Of course, as luck would have it, the parent companies of Salomon and of Citibank merged to form Citigroup. And we already had, I guess, a Citibank office here. So right. I did go to the board of Salomon Brothers to say that let's open up an office in the Philippines. Of course, I volunteered. I volunteered to be the guy that they would send. Yes. Fortunately, I got the approval. And of course, in my presentations, as my boss was recounting, all my slides had all these positive graphs about growth opportunities in the Philippines. And so he told me that as we grant you this approval, I hope that your revenue stream looks exactly like your graphs.
So, did they?
I think we did quite well.
Good.
And I think I'm very happy to have come back. So it was actually, this is actually my first, or that was my first working experience in the Philippines. So
is that right?
Coming back,
so right after
from school,
was
actually in terms of real employment.
And we're very happy to have you here, manning the Philippine Stock Exchange. So with that, thank you very much, Hans. Good luck to the PSE. Good luck to the Philippines.
Yeah, good luck to the Philippines, and please read this book.
Oh, thank you.